Shalom, hello, and welcome to the big show. Today we're going to discuss the pagan topic of original sin. And yes, it is a pagan topic, so I was having a little too much joy in Yahweh spreading the truth over on 119 Ministries, who tells you to test everything. But they don't mean to test Yeshua or Paul. And then they say things like this that aren't even in Torah. Like the written Torah and the living Torah are a package deal. You can't have one without the other. Really? Why did no one tell me about this living law, right? And there are things that will come up, but it's not in regard to what they're saying. Like Leviticus 11:46 here. This is the law regarding the animal and the bird and every living thing that moves. It doesn't say the law becomes alive. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed of Yahweh, who has not forsaken his loving kindness to the living and to the dead." Then Naomi said to her, "This man is a relative of ours, for the married woman has been bound by law to her husband while he is living." Oh, maybe we'll get to that too. That's classic Paul. Classic Paul twisting the Torah to support your message. You know, if you have to use sin to overcome sin, then your problem is you, not the Torah and not Yahweh. So let's go and start in Genesis 3, where the curse starts. And look at, we'll even read Paul in parallel, because this will be really fascinating. All right, so check this out. This is cool, right? 3 screens in one. Boom. Now the Nahash was more crafty than any beast of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And that's interesting. It uses the word here, crafty. Very interesting. In 2 Corinthians 12:16, this is Paul speaking about what people say about him. Be that as it may, I did not burden you myself. Nevertheless, crafty fellow that I am, I took you in by deceit. Uh, why are you throwing that out there, Paul? You're saying you're like Nahash? Interesting, right? So Yahweh Elohim is made, and he said to the woman, "Indeed, has Elohim said, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden." And see, this is the test. Will you pass the test when you are tested by Nahash? The woman said to the Nahash, "From the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim said, you shall not eat from it, you shall not touch it, lest you die." In the midst of the garden is an interesting word, because this is used in another place in the prophets that is very interesting. And Nahash said to the woman, "You shall surely not die." This is the lie, because God promised Adam before Eve was made that if you eat of the tree of the fruit of good knowledge of good and evil, you will die. But Nahash says, "You won't die, for God knows that the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like Elohim, knowing good and evil." So let's go back. There's an important bit here that I've not heard many people touch on, and that was intentional. In Genesis 3:3, Barashit, she has an interesting little slip here. You shall not eat from it. You shall not touch it, lest you die. What is that? Like, where is that coming from? Like if you go to Genesis 2, when Elohim Yahweh tells Adam not to touch the tree, what does he tell him? And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, from any tree of the garden you may surely eat, but from the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat from it, for the day you eat from it you shall surely die. You notice Yahweh never told Adam that you shall not touch it command. Why is that important? This is Adam's oral Torah to Eve. This is his Talmud. He told her an additional command, thinking that would keep her from sinning. But it didn't. Adding to the Torah, the instruction that Yahweh gave Adam, didn't keep Eve from sinning. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat it, your eyes will be opened, right? And this is a constant allegory about having your eyes opened in the New Testament, right? That you're blind currently. It's Nahash telling you that you need to be healed of your blindness. Then the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise. So she took from its fruit and ate it. She gave also to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. See, Adam was not off wandering with the animals, like the Talmudists say, and I'm not going to even say what they say he was doing. He was with Eve. And he was supposed to protect her. When he heard Nahash saying these things, he should have stopped Nahash and stomped him on his head. But he didn't. When he heard Eve misquote the Torah, he didn't correct her. When Eve took it in her hand to eat it, he didn't knock it out. When she ate it and then offered it to him, he didn't knock it out of her hand again. He didn't say, Jehovah has commanded we not do that, and I will trust him to bring another woman, knowing that you have violated his Torah. The eyes of both of them were opened. They knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loin coverings. And this is really interesting. When their blindness was removed, they knew they were naked. They knew that they were not pure in front of Yahweh. When your eyes are opened in the New Testament, you put on the fig leaf of human sacrifice and theophagy and believe that he cannot see your sin. He sees his son. But you're wearing a fig leaf. You're naked. Then they heard the sound of Yahweh Elohim walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man hid his wife and hid themselves in the presence of Yahweh Elohim in the midst of the trees of the garden. And Yahweh Elohim called to the man and said, where are you? And he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat? And the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave to me from the tree, and I ate. And Yahweh Elohim said to the woman, what is this you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. And Yahweh Elohim said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you more than any of the cattle, and more than any of the beasts of every field. On your belly you will go, and the dust you will eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain and conception, and in pain you will bear children, seed. And that's what it says, Zerah. You desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you. Then to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, have eaten from the tree which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread till you return to the ground, because you were taken from it. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Now the man called his wife's name Havah, because she was the mother of all living. Then Yahweh Elohim made garments of skin for Adam and his wife, and he clothed them. And Yahweh Elohim said, behold, this man has become like one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he send forth his hand and also take from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore Yahweh Elohim sent him out from the Garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which he was taken. So he drove the man out, and to the east of the Garden of Eden he stationed the cherubim and the flaming sword, which turned every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. So there's a lot in here that we just kind of glossed over. I wanted to read it all first. So the first thing is, when Yahweh comes, he first goes to Adam, the one who has the greatest responsibility in this situation is the man. The man, he asked, why did you sin against me? Why have you eaten from the tree of the garden? And what does he do? He projects. He refuses to take personal responsibility. See, he can't accept that it was his fault. This is a pattern. The woman whom you gave me to be with me, she gave from the tree and I ate it. So it's not my fault. The woman did it. So then he goes to the woman. The woman also sinned. Will the woman accept personal responsibility for her sin or not? And then Yahweh Elohim said to the woman, what is this you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate it. Again, she blames Nahash. And which is, you see the pattern here? Because, Mr. J-Man, he says what in John 3:14? And as Moses lifted up the Nahash in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man must be lifted up. He's calling himself Nahash. That, you can blame Nahash as your scapegoat for sin. This comes from Pauline theology, 2 Corinthians 5:21. He made him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf, so that we might become the righteousness of God in him. And all of this is impossible. Imputing sin on someone and their righteousness being imputed on you, it's impossible. Adam would have been a righteous man, even if he had sinned, if he had said, Father, I have sinned against you and against heaven. Please accept me back. But he doesn't say it. Look at Jeremiah 3:12. Go and call out these words toward the north and say, return, faithless Israel, declares Jehovah. And this is after he divorces Israel. And this is why the Romans 7 proposition is so ridiculous. I will not look upon you in anger, for I am one of loving kindness, declares Jehovah. I will not be angry forever. Only acknowledge your iniquity. See, Adam, Eve, do not acknowledge their iniquity. And this is something you see consistently in Christianity and Judaism. No humility for when you violate the Torah, the commandments of Elohim. And this lack of humility is why you are under a deceiving spirit. You don't acknowledge your iniquity. You don't seek to be right with Yahweh. You're wearing your fig leaf, whether it's Talmudic Judaism, Christianity, Islamic fundamentalism. It doesn't matter. You're all wearing this fig leaf, and you say, I am good before God because of my religion, my theology. So Yahweh then goes to Nahash, and he doesn't ask Nahash because he knows Nahash is guilty. Nahash receives this judgment. And within this judgment is what they call a messianic prophecy, which is not. The enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. And this is an important line because it is physical, not spiritual. your Zerah and her Zerah. It's talking about the Nahash's children, and it's talking about her children, her plural children. And this is what we see, this struggle between the physical Nahash and the spiritual Nahash. Those that want to live righteously, you have to crush Nahash on the head. Let's go to Romans 5 because, this is where Paul makes this big lie. And then we're going to go to Genesis 4. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, see, what is Paul immediately doing? He's blaming all sin on Adam. All sin. But we just read Jeremiah 3:12. If you acknowledge your iniquity, then I will forgive you. And you see this repeatedly throughout the prophets. Seek Yahweh, this is Isaiah chapter 55, verse 6. Seek Yahweh while he may be found, call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return to Yahweh, and he will have compassion on him and to our Elohim, for he will abundantly pardon. There's no concept of what Paul is saying in the Torah and the prophets that through one man sin entered to the world. No. And death through sin. Yes, death came through sin, right? No. Read the text. Let's go back to Genesis 3. Because they were already scheduled to be mortal. They were already mortal. Therefore, right here, Genesis 3:22, when he says, "Behold, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil, and now lest he send forth his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." So Adam, no matter what, was already going to die. It was his sin that kept him from accessing the tree of life. So death spread to all men. No, this was the state of man. God made us mortal with an option through obedience to take of the tree of life, because all have sinned. Yes, all have sinned. But what does Isaiah say of the sinner? Let the wicked forsake his way, the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return to Yahweh. Or let's go to another one, Ezekiel 18, right? Yet you say, why should the son not bear the punishment for the father's iniquity? If but the son has done justice and righteousness and has kept all my statutes and done them, he shall surely live. So, did Paul not have access to these writings, or was he just trying to make sure that Greek, the Gentile, the Goyim, reading this would not know the truth? Until Torah, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. This is such a nonsensical statement, too. Like, it's almost like Paul expected us to be idiots. Like, seriously. Like, look at Genesis 6. And Genesis 6:6, Yahweh regretted that he had made man on earth. He was grieved in his heart. Yahweh said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, from the man to the animals, the creeping thing in the sky, for I regret that I have made them. Why is that? Well, let's keep reading. But Noach found favor in the eyes of Yahweh. And these are the generations of Noach. Noach was a righteous man. Noach was a righteous man. He wasn't imputed sin. Blameless among those in this generation, Noach walked with Elohim. And Noach became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, the earth was corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence. And Elohim saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. All the flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. And this is the key here. It's not genetic. It's not that, they were breeding with fallen angels, like Enoch says. They were doing violence against one another. And that started with Cain. But this idea, right? When did the Torah against murder happen? The first Torah against murder is in Genesis 9 after the flood. And this is crucial because this is related to what we just read. Surely I will require lifeblood from every living thing, I will require it. And every man from each brother's, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, the violence we see in Genesis 6, by man his blood shall be shed, for the image of God he made man. So this is important to understand that this is the first time that there's a Torah instruction about what to do when somebody takes the life of another man, that his life must be taken in retribution. In Genesis 6, there is no such Torah, yet the sin they were committing was imputed against them. They all died in judgment of the flood. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam until Moses, even over those who had not sinned in the likeness of the trespass of Adam, who was a type of him to come. Our mortality reigned, yes, but that doesn't mean what you're saying, Paul. The gracious gift is not like the transgression, for if by the transgression of the one the many died, much more did the grace of God and the gift by the grace of the one man abound to many. And the gift is not like that which came through the one who sinned. For the one who hand the judgment arose from the transgression, resulting in condemnation. But on the other hand, the gracious gift arose from many transgressions, resulting in justification. For if by the transgression of the one death reigned through the one, much more those who receive the abundance of the grace of the gift. You see, this is all pointing you to the gift, right? And this is something Father showed me recently, this idea of being bribed. You shall not take a bribe. This is the free gift. For a bribe blinds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of righteousness. This is what Paul is saying, that if you take the bribe, grace, then righteousness will reign through his life. You've completely subverted righteousness. You don't even know what righteousness is because you've chosen evil to cover evil and sin to cover sin. So then, as through one transgression the resulting in condemnation to all men, not correct at all. Look at Deuteronomy 24:16. And this is where we're going to get to with this idea of original sin. Are you born sinful? Fathers shall not be put to death for their sons. And this is the same thing we see in Ezekiel 18, Ezekiel 3, Ezekiel 33. Fathers shall not be put to death for their sons, nor shall the sons be put to death for their fathers. One of the titles he uses is the Son of Man. In Hebrew, this is B'nai Adam, the son of mankind, the son of Adam. And, Paul goes through this idea that he's the second Adam. How can the second Adam be the son of Adam? But there's something even deeper here and more significant. Remember, Adam blamed his sin on his wife, the gift from Yehovah. Eve blamed it on Nahash. Paul is telling you to blame the second Adam for your sin, and then you will have his righteousness. I mean, you see this spiritual corruption that Paul is planting in your heart, the seed of darkness, that you can be bribed with evil and there be no problem with it? Let's go back to the bribery, right? Deuteronomy 10:17, for Yahweh Elohim is the Elohim of Elohims and the Lord of Lords. The great, the mighty, and the fearsome Elohim does not show partiality nor take a bribe. He won't take the free gift. Deuteronomy 16:19, you shall not distort justice, you shall not be partial, and you shall not take a bribe. For a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. Deuteronomy 27:25, cursed is he who takes the bribe, Paul's free gift of grace. to strike down innocent blood. And this is totally intentional. And if you go back to Exodus 23:8, the first passage here, what does it say right before it? Keep far from a false charge. Do not kill the innocent or the righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. Does this sound familiar? Well, it should. This is what Paul says in Romans 4:5. Now, to the one who works, his wage is not counted according to grace, but according to what is due. So, what is he saying here? If you do what is right, it becomes a debt. And this is important when we get to Solomon's version of Exodus 23:7. But to the one who does not work, you do not do what's right, but believes upon him who justifies the ungodly, justifies the wicked. For I will not justify the wicked. Or it's right here in Torah. This faith is counted as righteousness. How could your faith be counted as righteousness when he says he will not justify the wicked? Look at Solomon's version of this, Proverbs 17:15. He who justifies the wicked, he who condemns the righteous, both of them alike are an abomination to Yahweh. This is an abomination. Paul's letter is an abomination. So let's go back now. Genesis 4. So now the man knew his wife Eve. Yes, Cain is not a seed of the serpent. I mean, some people just go to a crazy town. I mean, I understand the Talmud says that Adam slept with the animals, but it doesn't mean Eve did. Neither of them slept with animals. It's ridiculous. Eve knew his wife, Eve, and she conceived after he knew her and gave birth to Cain, which means what? The gotten one. And she says what? I have gotten a man with the help of Yahweh. She doesn't credit Nahash. And again, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Abel was a keeper of flocks, but Cain was the cultivator of the ground. So it happened in the course of time that Cain brought an offering to Yahweh of the fruit of the ground. Abel on his part also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. And Yahweh had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain became very angry and his countenance fell. And then Yahweh said to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, you will not your countenance be lifted up. And if you do not do well, sin is lying at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock. This is the choice portion of his flock. Cain, who had no regard for his offering, brought the fruit of the ground. And this is a really bizarre saying. I can't think of any fruits that grow on the ground, like maybe tomatoes or cantaloupe, but I think the wording here is very intentional. Because just a chapter earlier, we see that fruit is where? On trees. The fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the fruit of life, right? And here, Cain is a cultivator of the ground, growing fruit trees, and he's bringing Yahweh the fruit of the ground. This is fruit that's fallen, has gone rotten, and is rotten. It's not the first fruit. It's not the choicest fruit. Cain didn't bring the choicest fruit. Now Yahweh had no regard for this offering because Cain had no regard for his offering. He just brought what was convenient, what was easy to do. And this is why you see Yahweh say, if you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? Meaning, if you do what's right, yes, you can do what's right, then Yahweh will lift you up. And In the Epistle of James, which I believe was written by an Ebionite against Paul, it says this. I gotta start over. Just start over yourself, dude. Just watch it from the beginning. But he gives greater grace. Therefore, it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And this is from a proverb. It doesn't say grace in Hebrew. Be subject, therefore, to God and resist the devil, and he will flee from you. You know, they don't believe you can do that because you have original sin. You can't stop sinning. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. And this is what we see in Genesis 4:6. If you do what is right, if you resist sin, then he will lift you up. It's that simple. And that's what we read in Jeremiah 3:12, Isaiah 55:6-7, Ezekiel 18, Deuteronomy 30. Over and over again, it's this pattern. Do what's right, resist what's wrong. Or Jeremiah, and this is an important one, Jeremiah 4:22. For my people are ignorant fools, they know me not. They are simple-minded children, and have no understanding. They are wise to do evil, but to do the good they do not know. You see, Vadi Bakum, this reform ministry, says, children are vipers and diapers. And this is just such a wicked statement because, I love the innocence of children. They're just so pure and so innocent. Do they constantly know to choose the good from the evil? No, they're children. But it doesn't mean they're evil. It's saying something like they're vipers and diapers. You're going to get what you expect. You're going to get children that act in a way that you expect them to act. Deuteronomy 1:39. Moreover, your little ones, who you said would become plunder, and your sons, who this day have no knowledge of good and evil. And see, this is important. They don't have knowledge of it. They don't have accountability yet. This is just like Adam before he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The reason he didn't realize he was naked is because he didn't have that knowledge of shame. He was like a child. He shall enter there, and I will give it to them, and they shall possess it. So, how can you say the children are guilty of their father's sin, of Adam? And let's go back to Deuteronomy 24:16, because this is so important. Paul's whole claim, and this is Christianity's claim, is the reason you have to choose sin for sin and evil for evil, human sacrifice, the murder of an innocent man, and drink his blood and eat his flesh is because you have indwelling sin that you cannot purge without choosing sin. Fathers shall not be put to death for their sons, nor sons be put to death for their fathers. Each shall be put to death for his own sin. See, you are not put to death for Adam's sin. So he cannot be put to death for Adam's sin either. This is so important to grasp. Let's see. One of the things to realize is each of us has the ability to do what's right. Remember, one of the other things he says here to Cain is that sin is lying at the door. And this phrase, I think, is also prophetic. Because in Revelation 3:20, he says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And this is one of the weird things, like this whole idea of the fisher of men, right? The only fisher of men in the Tanakh is Jeremiah 16:16-20 and Habakkuk 1, I believe, verse 12-14. And both of them are very negative. The fisher of men is a sign of judgment. There's this man catching idolaters and the wicked in his net, that they be punished for their sin. And the same is true for this little allegory in Revelation 3:20. The only thing that it talks about someone being at the door and knocking and wanting to come into your heart is in Genesis 4, verse 7. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens his door, I will come into him and I will dine with him and he will with me. And this is like an interesting thing, like the pagans mimicking the problems in Christianity. Vampires can only enter after knocking on the door and you letting them in. And how do you gain eternal life? You drink their blood and eat their flesh. Look, read this again, Genesis 4:7. It says, sin is lying at the door. Its desires for you, but you must rule over it. Now let's go to another passage. And he made him to be, who knew no sin, to be sin. So he's saying he is sin, and he's standing at the door, knocking to come into your heart. Just a coincidence, right? I mean, maybe this is why you believe you have original sin once you convert and are born again. You've taken the poison wormwood into your heart. But children are not guilty of that, as we see from Jeremiah chapter 1. What does it say of Jeremiah? Now the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, before I formed you in the innermost parts, I knew you. Before you came out of the womb, I set you apart. I have given you to be a prophet to the nations. And this is interesting, as what is the word nation in Hebrew? The goy, the goyim, the Gentiles. So, goodbye, New Testament. I don't need you. He forms Jeremiah in the womb. Now, if you believe this idea that, I am born a sinner, and the only thing that can heal my sin is sin. Sorry, I had to do that. The womb is where he was formed by Yahweh. All of us is the same. He formed you in the womb. You did not pre-exist that point. If he formed you in the womb and you were formed a sinner with original sin, then he formed you as a sinner. I mean, this is what you have to do to believe these lies. And I've talked to reformers about this for years, even before I have come to where I currently am. Because them not believing the clarity of Genesis 4:6, it means Yahweh lied to Cain. Why are you angry as your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not count spirit and full lifted up? They teach that you can't do what's right. They teach the total Pauline depravity, that you can't do what's right. But Yahweh says, clear as day, if you do well, your countenance will be lifted up, meaning he can do well. He can resist sin. He didn't have to murder his brother Abel. So let's continue this, because this is so crucial, because it shows us what the original sin really was. And this is something I discussed at the beginning of the video. That Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. It happened when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and killed him. And then Yahweh said to Cain, where is Abel your brother? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? And you see this lie? Yahweh already knows what Cain did. He goes to Cain, just like he went to Adam and Eve, and asks him, will you be accountable? Will you admit your sin? There's a little interesting tidbit. Yahweh doesn't expect you to be perfect. He expects you to be humble. Not everyone is going to be like Hezekiah, where you're blameless your whole life. Many of you are going to be like David, where you commit sins, grievous sins like murder and adultery, and then you have to seek a purging of that. Deliver me from my blood guiltness, O Elohim, the Elohim of my salvation. Then my tongue will joyfully sing of your righteousness. O Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise, for you do not delight in sacrifice. Otherwise I would give it. You are not pleased with burnt offering. The sacrifices of Elohim are a broken spirit, and a broken and contrite heart, O Elohim, you will not despise. Again and again, if you do transgress, if you're caught in the shame of sin, don't scapegoat it on the second Adam. Don't scapegoat it on someone else, saying, well, I was led into it by this guy or this woman. My wife led me into it. She showed me this beautiful fruit, told me it was going to change our life. So I ate of it. All of this is profane. You just acknowledge your sin. What shall I come before Yahweh and bow myself before the Elohim on high? Well, shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with the yearling calves? Is Yahweh pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? What does this sound like? It sounds like the New Testament. And what has he said? He has told you, O man, what is good. But what does Yahweh require of you but to do justice, love loving kindness, and walk humbly with your Elohim? It's that simple. Be humble, admit you've sinned, show mercy, and do what's right. It's that simple. This is the simplicity of Yahweh versus the complex New Testament replacement theology crap. It imputed righteousness, imputed sin, scapegoating another man, the second Adam. It's all garbage. Wash yourselves, purify yourselves, remove the evil of your deeds before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Yes, you can cease to do evil. You can learn to do good. You can seek righteousness, justice, reprove the ruthless, rebuke them, execute justice for the orphan, plead for the widow. Come now, let us reason together. Yes, reason, not emotion, not love. Love is deceitful. Love is deceitful. Let me repeat. Love is deceitful. That's why you do not see in Torah. Let's see if I still have that up here. You know, this, when I was on 119 Ministries, Michael Booth kept saying, if you love me, keep my commandments, which is him stealing Yahweh's glory. Because this is what Yahweh says in Exodus 26. So are you going to listen to him? See, love came first, and obedience comes out of true love. Yeah, yes, you should love Yahweh, but if you're deceived in love, then you're going to choose sin. The heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Who can know it? You see, go to 1 Kings 11. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women. Let's repeat that word. Loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women, from the nations concerning which Yahweh had said to the sons of Israel, you shall not go along with them, nor shall you go along with you, for they will surely turn your heart away after other gods. See, love turned him from the commandments. Now, this is crucial. Love deceived Solomon. This is why it does not say what the New Testament says, that love is the principle of the Torah. Now, love is important, but it has to be directed by the mind. That's what the Torah does. The Torah guides us vertically through our mind to serve Yahweh alone. If love is not guided upward, then you are going the wrong way. You were loving another man or a woman. And we'll get to that. That's powerful enough. Showing mercy to thousands, those who love me and keep my commandments. See, love guides you through your mind, through the Torah, to eat of the tree of life. Now, if love is not guiding you vertically through Torah, then the Torah becomes the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then you eat of it, it reveals your sin, you deflect, blame the second Adam, and refuse to change your ways. Where am I going? Father, help me. My train of thought just vanished. Maybe Father wants us to stop right there. It's so important here to not love the man. That's right. So John 8:40. Now you are seeking to kill me, a man. He just called himself a man. Well, that's weird, right? So John 14:1. Do not let your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Yeah, that's a good commandment, right? Believe in God. Believe also in me. Wait a minute. How can you have a heart divided? Believe in God. Believe also in me. Remember what he said about mammon in Matthew 6? Verse 24, no man can serve two masters. What did he just say? Believe in God, that's one. Believe also in me, that's two. He's having you serve two masters. He will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be loved one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Treasure. Your treasure is Jesus. That's your treasure. That's your idol. You serve two masters, and you can't love Yahweh if you're also loving mammon. Just like Solomon. Solomon multiplied his wives. He had many wives, and he loved them, and he followed after them, just like Adam followed after Eve. When they told him to build an idol to their God, he did. When they told him, the king, we have to sacrifice our firstborn son to Molech, he did. They're saying that's not in there. Well, it's not directly in there. I agree. But let's look at this. 1 Kings 11 again. Verse 7. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable light of Moab, on the mountain which is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the detestable light of the sons of Ammon. What is Molech? Well, Leviticus 18:21. And you shall not give any of your seed to pass them over to Molech, nor shall you profane the name of Elohim. I am Yahweh. This is one of the reasons, reading these passages is what's like just set my mind on fire, that there's something wrong. Why am I accepting what theology is saying? Why is, the firstborn son cannot die for the sins I have committed? That's profane. It's an abomination. Nor is it required. This is what we see consistently too. Let's go to one last passage. Then we will call it a day. So it will be when all these things have come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you cause these things to return to your heart in all the nations where Yahweh Elohim has banished you. And you return to Yahweh your Elohim, listen to his voice, and the Talmud says you can't, that you have to go through the rabbi. The Christians say You can't. You have to go through their religion and interpret passages their way. Like, go ahead and tell them original sin is not in the scripture. What will they tell you? Well, that's a lie. We have to have original sin. Otherwise, we don't need Jesus. With all your heart and all your soul, according to all that I am commanding you today, you and your sons. Then Yehovah your Elohim will return you from captivity. And this is the other part of this. Every promise is physical. This is not a spiritual promise. It's physical. Return his compassion on you, and he will gather you again from all the peoples where Yehovah your Elohim has scattered you. If those of you who are banished are at the ends of the sky, from there Yehovah your Elohim will gather you, and there he will take you back. Yehovah your Elohim will bring you into the land. Physical promise. Which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. He will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. Moreover, Yehovah Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yehovah Elohim with all your heart and all your soul. See, single-minded now. We're no longer double-minded, trying to serve two masters, so that you may live. And Yehovah your Elohim will inflict these curses on your enemies and those who hate you, who persecuted you. All right, so Torah, as I said, is the tree of life. If you hear the words of the curse and you change your behavior, correct it, remove your sin, correct your mind to no longer pursue sin, then you will be eating the tree of life. You will be blessed, not cursed. However, if you read Torah and it leads you to believe what we read in Deuteronomy 29, verse 19, I have shalom, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart in order to sweep away the water line with the dry. They heard the curses say, "Oh, I'm not under the law, I'm under grace." It doesn't matter. You say that, and you know what? Yehovah says he's going to blot you out. It literally, it says, Yahweh will blot out his name under heaven. That's not my words, that's what he says. So if you say that you're not under the law, that you're under grace, well, you've turned the tree of life into the tree of death. You've chosen to let the curses reign over you. You've chosen to let sin reign over you. What? Well, Paul says that he is sin, right? 2 Corinthians 5:21. He is sin on our behalf. So you're letting sin rule over you. You let him in your heart. Now he's ruling over you. Torah is like a mirror. When you read it, you have to be humble of heart, calm of spirit. That when you read something and it just like pierces your heart, you're like, I've violated Torah. Now what will you do? Will you blame someone else for your sin? Or will you reflect and say, Father, I have sinned. I need to correct this. I need to make it right. Please help me. Humble yourself and draw near to Yahweh, and he will draw near to you. It's that simple. Now you say, well, what about all of the priestly offerings? What about them? Is there currently a high priest in the land? Can you go to the chosen city, which I believe is Shechem, and make an offering? No. You can't go to Shechem. You can't go to Jerusalem. Especially not without your green pass showing that you got the mRNA injection. Uh-oh. Now, I will have to think about switching to Odyssey. They might strike me out for that. The truth is, all of us have a choice, right? Choose the curses or choose the blessing. When you choose the curses, you're making the Torah like water that does not reflect. It's choppy. Like the waves are just pouring over you, and you can't accept the responsibility. Like, it's not my fault. And it crashes on you. It's not my fault. It's their fault. I can blame Jesus. And it crashes on you. And the water never calms down. You never have a calm spirit. And I've seen this. If your spirit is not calm, you will never accept responsibility. You're always going to pursue that scapegoat, the second Adam, to blame for your sin. Even if you throw out Paul, I can't accept full responsibility. He showed me how to be. He's the living Torah. You got to calm your spirit. You got to accept that you have been lied to. And, accepting that responsibility means that you now want to live in truth and walk in truth, walk in his Torah. Hallelujah, right? I hope all of you have a good day of preparation. Enjoy your Shabbat. Hallelujah to this message of choosing the righteousness